Hey everybody, welcome to a bit of a longer video. If you have a beverage on hand like I do, quick coffee to go with this, it would probably do you well. In this video, we're going to go over this session that I did with Mr. Wilde at the mounting block. It's a lot of groundwork, but we're preparing him to be ridden, and I want to make sure that I don't leave any gaps in the way. I don't leave any problems that I have to deal with much later. So we're going to talk about that as I go. And as I explain the things that I'm up to and what I'm thinking about and why I do certain things. So without further ado, let's get into this video.
Okay, let's see what we can do today.
So we are at the mounting block, obviously. I highly recommend a mounting block like this to everybody. Real sturdy, a little bit of a hand rail there to either put stuff on or hold on to. And a bunch of steps with a big platform on top. Now this puts me quite high above him. I've done a couple of sessions with him being up on top of the stairs, but I've never really followed through an awful lot with it. So today's that day that I decided that it would be important to get things better. A lot of my work with horses is done to provide reassurance. But at the same time, I'm not going to settle for just sort of wandering around and not paying attention or not doing the things that I'd like them to do. So we'll talk about that as I go, but I do tend to be quite persistent and I won't give up on the things that I'm asking for. So here we'll see what his baseline is essentially. So if I go to try to put this on, you see he kind of wanders off and he gets kind of worried. Now again, I will say that he has been saddled. He takes his blanket, no problem when I'm on the ground. So his baseline on the ground, not shown here, you just have to trust me on it, is much better than when I'm up above him. And a lot of the work that we do with horses, so say for example, you've got a horse that can walk and trot and be ridden in an arena, and then you change the environment to trail riding, we change the environment to an inside arena, or you change the environment from a round pen to a large arena, and suddenly they're different. And so what I'm hoping to do, as much as I can, is not leave those bits and pieces of gaps. So if I can put a blanket on or saddle on from the ground, I want to be able to put a blanket or saddle on from up high. I pet horses an awful lot, scratching them and trying to help him out, cleaning his eye and stuff like that. But what I'm doing here is I'm actually trying to get his other eye to pay attention to me as well as the eye that I've got. And we'll see as we go along that he has a preference for which eye he gives me more, which side of his body he'd like to give me more. And I find horses like that are what I refer to and other people refer to as one-sided. We don't want a horse to be one-sided. We want them to be two-sided, sort of ambidextrous kind of thing. And the way we do that is we continuously work with both sides of the body all the time. So when I have him coming up, and here I have to be a bit of a pest and have him come forward, and I'll pet him quite a bit. I'll pet a lot of horses and let them know that I'm their friend while maintaining pressure. You see, my left hand never stops applying that pressure to come forward. Now sometimes I'll use a snap of the fingers to get attention or to get a little bit of energy. It's no different than clucking or whistling or smooching or whatever, but I'll use a hand gesture. And so here I'm driving with my left hand. I'm using the bitter end or the loose end of the lead rope like a tail of a horse. And my right hand is used or was being used for direction. Now I've switched. My right hand was going to be used for drive. I think I tried to get a fly off for a second and then somebody gave me a phone call. But I'm still maintaining that pressure with my left hand. So one thing is maintaining for sure. When a horse is walking by at the mounting block, I'll try real hard to slow them down or stop them by scratching or petting them. Plenty of horses, one reaction or another will happen. You touch them and they'll freeze, or you touch them and they're like, oh yeah, that's a good spot. You should just go back a little further, go forward a little bit, and you can still get them to stop. So one way or another, we can plenty of times get them to stop moving while they're wandering past at the mounting block.
Good boy.
And the other thing is I want to be working on the other side of his body. So I don't want him to be, I wouldn't want to only work on the left side of his body while he's facing me to the left, because it means I'm not doing anything to the right side. So I'll be trying to get over there as much as possible. And this type of scratching or touching is a little bit of a passive sort of touch or scratch. It's not specific. I'm not trying to meet a need in particular. Like sometimes we'll do when we go to scratch and groom horses, we'll try to see where they're itchy or where they would like a bit of a massage of some sorts and meet that need. And that'll be important. It's a good process of co-grooming. But there's the blanket on. And this is just it's sort of a saddle pad covered blanket. I believe I bought it a long time ago, but I really like it. It's not heavy, it's quite light, but it still has good shape to it. It doesn't just fly around in the wind all the time. I mean, a good wind it will, but a breeze won't move it at all, which is good. So it's like a towel. It's much heavier than a towel, but it works really well to wrap around. You see how far down it comes. It's a fantastic sort of length for that. So when I'm having a horse come up to the mounting block, and I've seen plenty of horses that are reasonably finished horses, walking, trot, canter, all of it, riding stuff, but they won't come up to a mounting block like this. It'll really worry them. You have to lead them up, or some people feel like they have to lead them up. And I tend to never lead a horse up to a mounting block. I'll go to the mounting block and have them come stand next to me. Now here's a little thing that I learned a long time ago, because I always call a lead rope and a halter a cheat. And I've been able to get him to come to me because of that. But I want to be able to also let that go. I want to not have to hold on to it and sort of tie him to me. Sometimes I just want to put it down and do something. And in this case, I'm using one of my favorite scratching tools, which is it's a kid's rake. But it allows me to reach even further over the other side of his body so that I can have him used to that, used to when he comes up next to me that I'm going to scratch, and hopefully I'll get the right spot. So here I'm giving it a test to see about how he feels if I put a leg over top. My foot's all the way over, my leg is kind of on him, by a little bit of weight, not much. And it will come off. So he didn't leave, and that's a really good thing, but he also isn't very
Could you get any more
loose about it. It's kind of a way to put it, I guess. And we'll see. There's a big gap here that I don't want to not fill. I'd like to fill that gap before I really get on. So here's a little more weight. I've got all the way up to my knee kind of pressing down, and my calf is sort of on that side of the body. A little bit more weight. You can see he's sort of moving around. His legs are positioning a little bit better. And in reality, he's actually balancing himself. So I don't have any problems with horses doing that if he needs to get a little bit of balance. But I'll continue to passive scratch and rub. And I think it's also another form of flooding. And then we'll give him a breather. We can watch him blink a little. And we want to watch for floppy ears. We want to see him not be so rigid. If he reacts to flies, that's good. You know, picks his foot up and thumps it. There, he put his right foot out to get a little balance. He's checking me out with that right eye. And this is definitely one of the things that I try to allow them to do instead of holding their head into one side, so that they can sort of view me with both eyes. I mean, he's probably got a pretty good idea in his left eye where I'm at, what I'm doing, but when my foot comes all the way over and that blanket starts to move a little bit, he needs to check that out with his right eye.
Back up.
So now he's moved his butt away, so I've got to reset him. And again, this kind of thing I think is really useful because I get to practice over and over and over again to have him lead up to the stairs or to a mounting area, in this case the mounting block. And so my right hand is saying go back, go around. My left hand gives a little bit of action. And I'd like him to react just simply off of what my right hand is asking for direction. So here we'll try to get him to come up. Sometimes I'll reach a little with my hand that's close, and my left hand in this case is applying pressure to come forward. Ears, eyes, mouth, all good things to touch when a horse is a little bit worried. You can give him some reassurance that everything's okay, no big deal, you'll be fine. Okay, with the snapping of the fingers, it's just a thing that I do. You don't have to. But it's to provide some kind of energy, some kind of wake-up call, like, hello, it's me asking for something for you to do. And I'll want to, in this case, try to keep him from veering away. Because a lot of horses, when they come up to where you're higher up, they don't want to give you their hind end. So their head and their shoulders and the front of their body will be closer, but their back end will swerve away. So again, we just continue to try to make him feel a little bit safer and continue to practice with the blanket on him to see if he shows any reaction. And he's quite calm, but there's still a big gap that we're going to see here soon. But he's not bad, right? He comes up, he's quiet, we put the lead rope down. Now I'm really going to kind of lean over and give him good scratches and chuck a leg on, put a little bit more weight on him, see how he feels. But the thing about him that bothered me while I was doing this is the way he was looking to the right and how kind of rigid he felt. So that's pretty good. I'd have to say, if I really wanted to, I probably could have hopped on and hopped off. Maybe go for a little bit of a walk. But this is where our conversation about gaps needs to start. And you'll see as I progress along a little bit here, that he does have a mighty big gap. So if I were to hop on, you see how he comes with his right ear and his right eye and doesn't look overly happy. You know, he could have floppier ears, he could have a softer eye. There's some worry there. So this then begs the question, well, what is that and how do we deal with it? Now that we've recognized it. So the way that I think about this, there I finally can get a little more to his back end. And I wanted to see if there's any difference if I had that blanket on or not. Not a big difference. I tend not to hop on horses without something on them, mainly because I want to keep my pants a little bit cleaner. But I like having that extra item so that my body isn't applying the direct friction. Now, when he goes to move off like that, I know there's plenty of conversation about, oh, you taught him to walk off and that will get you off of him. I'm not worried about that at all. If he is walking off while I'm trying to get on him, there's a gap there. That's what that means. It means that he's not comfortable. So how do I get him to where he's comfortable that I would just sit on, get off, sit on again, get off, sit on, get off? Because I don't want to have to double him up or pull his head around or whatever these terms are for that. I want him to be calm throughout the whole process. So to get on him and to sort of tough it out or even worse, have him buck it out would be detrimental to both of us. I'm not interested in doing that, and I know he's not interested in either. I want him to look calm.
Let's change the pattern. Come on.
So you see he's braced away from me a little bit now. I'm asking a little bit more of him. I'd like him to come forward, and I have to maintain this.
Go forward. No, I don't.
This is a very methodical thing, very methodical and kind of a consistent thing. I want him to go past at this point. Now he's got this little pattern in him that's been well established for him to come up beside me on this side. But I want him to go past. And then he's having a poop because he's a little bit worried. I tend to keep up a tiny bit of pressure while they're doing that. I won't hassle him a lot, but I won't give up on saying you need to get moving so that when he's ready to go, he'll go. There we go. And when he does go, you just kind of release all that. Have him come around. The lead rope is very light in my left hand. And now I want him to come up towards me this way. And this is his worried side. In my opinion, I think that horses have a safety side and a danger side. And his danger side is his left side. He'd like to keep danger on his left side. So to come up to me with his right side is a bit of a stretch for him. It's not as comfortable. Now, to reiterate, I don't have any problems with having him come up to be on either side of his body when I'm on the ground. So the gap here is that I can't get him to do it if I've changed that at all, if I'm higher up. And we'll see later on in this video, I actually kneel down on the stairs and he responds a bit better to that. Here I'm turning my phone off because I got another phone call and it was starting to distract me. And I had forgotten to turn it off so that I don't get distracted. It also gives them a little bit of a breather too. There's nothing wrong with just randomly taking breathers. So a little bit of pressure. There my hand comes out. Hopefully I don't have to snap my fingers. I like to just have my hand come out and drive them around a little bit with a bit of hand pressure. So we're still getting him to essentially do figure eights at the mounting block, which is great practice. You should do it anyways, right? Right turn, left turn.
Good turn.
Straight ahead, and then right turn, left turn. And this type of practice is really, really important. And it's very important to do both sides all the time, not just have one side good, which is what I'm trying to accentuate here as we're at the mounting block, trying to get him to come up without trouble. We work on both sides, so one side doesn't have to be perfect for the other. His left side is definitely not perfect, and his right side is not even close. So I've got to work on this quite a bit. It says normal. Horses are one-sided. They tend to have a strong side and a weak side, or a brave side and a scared side, or whatever you want to call it. But they will be one-sided quite often. So just keep working on it. And I'd like to touch him while I'm up here. He should know that. So if I can't reach him, I'll definitely use this rake to kind of be able to reach. And he knows this rake as a friendly rake. I've used it a lot on him. So I can continue to reinforce that even if I'm up high, I'm just a good friend. It's all good. No cause for concern. And again, this is very passive scratching. I'm not meeting a specific... If I happen to fluke out and get a spot that he's really keen on, good, lucky. But for the most part, I'm just touching, scratching. You know, we're not hitting, we're not whacking, we're not swinging the rope to cause, I don't know, like fear or pain of any sorts. We just want him to keep shuffling around. Left turn, right turn. Come up. A little more energy. Withdraw. So I really want him to get off of the halter. These types of patterns in horses tend to lead to where if you were to tie them, they'd sit back on that thing and they wouldn't relieve their own sort of pressure. So this is really good practice to get them to keep thinking about coming forward as a release of pressure from the halter and the lead rope, which again, I'll say a million times over, just a big cheat or cheating. The only way I can control him is to have that rope around his head kind of idea. Otherwise he'd be gone. There's no way he'd stick around with me. So I have to slowly convince him through this method that hanging around with me is pretty good, even if I am up super high. And this is slow. So while the training itself may look a little bit sort of boring, we want boring. We want monotony a little bit. We don't want... Best way to put it, I think, is simply that to push him beyond threshold would push us back a spot. In this case, sometimes we do. We push them a little bit beyond the threshold and we bring them down, and we bring them up and we bring them down. But this isn't the place for it. So watch this. Watch what happens here.
Come here, I gotta put this thing on this side.
Beyond threshold. Look at his escape. He gets his butt out as fast as he can. The only reason I have his nose in his face is because he's tied to me with that lead rope and halter. We're cheating. But I've got to be able to convince him somehow. So that's what we do. This is the tool we use.
Okay, go around.
So he's gone out of position. I need to put him back. So again, right? Right turn, left turn, straight. And this will be, in time, just muscle memory for him. When I walk up those steps, he'll just walk up next to me. And he'll expect some scratches maybe, or at the very least, he'll just expect me to be a friend. No reason for concern. So realizing that, you know, when he comes up on his right-hand side, that he can't make it, he can't stand being there. He feels like he's in danger. There's fear there. It's not disobedience. It's not him being sassy or stubborn or any of that stuff. You can see I could put a rope over him.
You could use a little bit of that too.
He's a little flinchy, a little worried. But we just kind of keep it up a little bit. And another phrase that I say a lot is that horses can stand for things when they're standing. So he's not moving an inch and I'm doing something, but it doesn't mean that we've actually made it anywhere with that. But it's better than it was at the very beginning of standing for the activity. So now I'm going to try to convince him that the rope is no big deal, and I'll start up near his ears and his head. We'll make sure that that's kind of okay, and while it's on there, I'll draw him up. And see, he floated back just a smidge. Then I'll bring that off, pet him, tell him he's a good boy, all that kind of stuff. Have him draw up. Now the thing about this platform, I don't know if you've noticed, but my feet are shuffling along a little bit here and there. And sometimes I'll use that as a bit of a draw, like I'm going this way and leaving, or I'm getting out of the space that you're worried about. So a mounting block like this is very handy, something with some space to it. In fact, if anything, I wouldn't mind a longer one. So I'm going to try to continue to get this rope up over top of his neck and his back on his right-hand side. Carefully, though. And the thing about horses, they're actually quite smart in this regard, in that they can generally figure out when you're just tossing something around carefully, or if you're going to be using much more speed, or you've got different intent. So that's something we want to communicate to them as we go. So if I go to do something, I might start off with a woo, or I might use a low, good boy here, you know, good girl. Sort of process, that vocal process, to start what I believe is going to be an activity that will worry the horse. And then hopefully, over time, those vocal cues or sounds will say to him, everything's going to be fine. Hopefully it won't be one of those things where they hear and they're like, oh, trouble's coming right after this. But we'll use it a lot with things when we go to scratch and touch and stuff like that. So you can see he doesn't really have an issue on this side, but he is quite rigid. His eyes don't really blink. His ears seem kind of still, a little too still. I'll ask him forward. And he should be following the way my direction hand is directed. I'd like not to use drive if I don't have to. So here's an important thing to think about. If you're not getting something done in an environment or a place that of an activity that you know you can get done, head back to the way that you can get it done and then connect it to the new environment. So in this case, me being down low or up high, when I'm down low, I can put this thing on and move it around, and you know, he's got a little bit of worry here and there, but he's quiet. He can manage it. So what I'll try to do quite often is make sure I have the very basics. There I ask for his head down. It's very important. He stops with the habit of keeping his head up high. A horse with a high head tends to, they're indicating they're quite worried. Here I'm actively trying to be quite careless with this thing. It's not a demonstration of what I can do, but it's a reminder to him that he can do this from the ground. So then when I go back up onto the stairs, there will hopefully be a connection where he won't go shuffling off. And he doesn't.
Okay, come here.
But he also hasn't moved. So now we're going to get him to break his feet free, and he goes flying past. But you see, he stopped there. He froze there. Not good. So these are all signs of gaps. And I don't want any of these here before I ride. Because if I go to ride, that means I'm stuck trying to deal with these kinds of things while riding. I'd rather them be sorted out so that when I'm riding, I can concentrate on more riding activities rather than acclimation to stuff that's touching him on both sides of his body, and me being up high, and then also me trying to control his face and use my feet and my body. And I don't want to have all of these things to deal with. So do as much as we can while we're on the ground, or in this case on the platform, but still groundwork, while we're not on the horse. So here I let the lead rope go again. It can actually be very freeing for a horse if they know that you're not hanging onto their face, which is why I never tie horses up. And I certainly would never tie a horse to saddle them. I would never tie a horse to get this kind of job, brushing or picking up their feet and stuff like that, done. If you tie them, unless they're really, really trained to tie, and you've already done this and you just tie them for, I don't know, whatever purpose, but not for the purpose of teaching them that everything is okay. Without their freedom, without their ability to have a way to say their will. So here I'm putting some pretty good weight on him. I'd come quite a bit off. And you see him backing up. It's got to fly, I think. But he's going to give me his left eye here.
Come here, I need your other eye.
But I always ask him back. I say, no, just keep this straight.
Up.
His head popped up for a second there. Hopefully he doesn't travel past. And yeah, vocal commands are a really big deal for these kinds of things as well. You can say whoa, or stop, or step forward, or one step. A lot of things that you can do. Put some more weight on him. I am intentionally carefully flooding, I guess we could call this. This is a lot of touching. But I want him to know that I'm going to be touching all kinds of places. And I stick with it just a little bit. See, he checks his left side to make sure he's still alive, but most of his attention was on his right side. So I'll take that off. He draws towards me. I give a rub where everything was. I feel like I'm trying to tell him that I'm here to check you over and that everything's fine. Back up to the stairs. So the moral of the story really is it's a lot of repetitive work, right? Left turn, right turn, left turn, straight. And he still resists. So we still have this gap here. We still do not have a horse that just simply left turn, right turn, forward. Right turn, forward. Left turn, forward. Still sort of is a little stumbly. But he's learning. He's a little bit better. He comes out of this way better than when he started. And we're looking on that one step. There we go. Oh, there he moved. We'll get a rope over him. But he's worried. We've got to try. We've got to try. Say, come on, come back on over here, and let's go back the other way. Reset. Right turn, left turn, straight. Over and over and over. And he'll know. He'll figure it out. You can see he's continuously trying to get that left eye on me, not the right eye. So I'll work on that. So I give a little audio cue, say everything's okay. Just need to chuck this rope over top of you. Pet him, draw it over carefully. And it's an underhand kind of throw. It's a very careful kind of throw. It's not painful, doesn't hurt. It might be a little irritating. But it allows me to sort of provide a bit of energy on this side of his body. And that energy then transfers over to the other side because that's where the rope is going. So he has to concentrate on both sides of that and not feel trapped A lot of times when we do this, even when we're riding horses, they feel trapped because they've got something on both sides of their body. There's no escape.
One step.
So the last thing we want is for him to be thinking that he needs an escape. If I can continuously train him
It's a big deal.
that being with me is a place of safety and not a place of concern, then he won't be looking for an escape. He won't be looking to get away. He won't be
Take that step.
feeling concerned that he needs to keep his head up high. There, it just moved a little. That's good.
Good boy.
A lot of training is real quiet work like this, where you get one step, two steps, maybe
Ready? Hold.
3, 4, maybe.
You're okay.
There's a backward step. Got a little worried he wanted to escape, but he didn't.
Good boy.
He stuck with it. Listening to my audio cues a little. Some flinchy flinch there on that one.
Doesn't hurt though. It's just landing on you.
So we need to pay attention to all these little signs. His ears still backwards, a little rigid, not blinking much. He's quite worried. He's not yelling, you know. When we watch some of
You're just standing
the
there.
horse training that is out there, a lot of the horses are screaming. They are really yelling. So this guy isn't yelling, but he's definitely telling me there's a big flinch. I tried to touch his face.
Yes.
Now, when I'm on the ground, there's no problem. I can hug him, put him in a headlock. I can do all kinds of things with him. Touch his ears, touch his eyes, touch his nose, put my hands in his nose, in his mouth. He handles all that, but not when I'm up high. So he's sort of yelling a little bit here and there. No, I'm not comfortable.
Good boy.
Another thing I'll do, you see me sort of touch his eye and draw his face over
You're okay.
and see how rigid it is, how much bend he has, not as a flexibility test, but more of a whether or not he's relaxed, whether he's got whether his mind is set to be a little more relaxed. Now, another thing you may notice here is that I've scooched down. I'm much lower. So I'm more at his eye level. And I do think that horses, their limited eye vision for vertical focal length is important. So coming down low actually gave him a sense of comfort. He's much closer to me. He's a little bit calmer. Now with this blanket kind of coming up and over, he's not blinking much, and his ears are still just straight back, just wondering what's going on. His attention is back. So I'm working, I'd say, okay, you can put your head down a little, take it easy for a second. It's all good. And this is an exercise I do with horses an awful lot because they'll tend to get their head up. And when their head is up, it means they're worried, they're concerned. So I want to make sure to ask, and if they don't put their head down when you ask, then they're stuck, they're frozen, and it's a good place to start before you have to get too concerned about moving their feet around too much. Break the body free, have them be loose and a little more carefree in their thought process. But we're making good progress in getting this thing on his right side. Up and over and up and over to his butt, drag it around, talk to him. I feel like I could have lowered his head more. I'm not holding onto the lead rope. He's free. If he wanted to take off, he could probably get the job done. There's his head down. We'll see if it pops back up. It does a little bit. And we don't want that. We want to just leave his head down. Most horses in a state of relaxation will have their head quite level with their body. Sometimes lower. So with enough done on the stairs, I'll leave a blanket on him and take a little walk and see if he'll draw with me away from the stairs, which he does. Comes up close, you can see I can touch him, I can hug him. Play with that blanket on his left side. Play with that blanket on his right side. No concern, no worries. Now, this whole time we've actually been working with other horses in the arena. They're at the other end of the arena, but we're all together. So here I take the halter off. because I want to do one more thing with him. I think it's important. I want to leave this session, this education session with him on the option to take off. He's free. He doesn't have anything on him. I am not cheating anymore, but I'm on the ground. And I know I can get this done. So the thing that I know I can get done, I want to end off on. The stuff that I'm unsure of or I'm still working on, I'll do that in the middle. Beginning in the middle a little bit, but at the end, we'll do something that I know he can do. I know he's good with. See, I have my hand all the way around his face. I'm controlling his nose, eyes, ears. He could leave at any time. But it doesn't. And I think it's important. If he did leave at this, then I'd probably keep on going, but I'm just checking this out. And there's his right side. He does have his nose away from me, so I ask him to bring his nose back over. I'd like his attention on this side while I'm over here, because the blanket actually is leaning way over on his left side. So I'll pet him, ask for his face, and then I'll try to draw. There I drew his attention, which is good. He didn't just try to leave right away. And that's what a horse should look like. See how low his head is? That's what he should look like all the time. So before I ride, I want him to look like that. That's my goal. And then he went off to go get himself a drink of water. Anyway, so that's it. That's the whole video. Hopefully that's been interesting. If you have any questions, let me know anytime. But this is how we keep the gaps out, hopefully. Thanks for watching.